Okay, hi everyone. My name's Fraser, and yeah, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a look at increasing engagement with the public, and also kind of pushing my remit a little bit about expanding your reach as well. A lot of what I'm going to talk about today is related to my own experience about engaging with different audiences, engaging with the public in particular. And I think as well, I'm hoping to bring something a little bit different for today. And I think this is a topic that, at least when I was training and continue to train, it's not really something that was discussed much. I think it's an important topic today, now more than ever, about how we actually engage with the public, how we engage with different audiences, how we actually reach out, both what that can do for the larger people, for people at large, and also what that can do for our own career development, professional development. So I'm hoping to kind of expand on that as we go. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of already been said basically, but you know, a bit of a brief background to myself. I'm a counselling psychologist in training up at GCU, and about a year away from finishing up. I work as a psychological counsellor for First Psychology, which is the biggest kind of private practice, therapeutic private practice in Scotland, actually. I also work as a therapist for a relationship counselling organisation called The Spark. And I have a passion for psychology, mental health, and encouraging early career psychologists, psychology students as well. Yeah, trying to inspire and encourage as best I can. And I'm also the founder of Get Psyched. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about what Get Psyched is, how it started, and how it's maybe applicable to what we're going to talk about today. I've got a couple of aims for today, just in a brief period. I want to give as much value as I can in 15, 20 minutes. Now, when I say that, that means that, you know, people come to conferences like this or meetings like this with different agendas, with different intents. And for some I might meet that, for others I might not. And if I don't, then I really want to make sure that you get the opportunity to ask me some questions or have the opportunity to kind of clarify some things. So that is always open. I know that we have that opportunity today, but I also have, you can reach out to me on social media and email and things like that. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. I'm going to talk about the lessons I've learned from engaging with different audiences and the reasons why I think it's so important. And I've said here about tips on getting your name out there, but that's more to do with kind of thinking patterns and strategies that I've utilised and that's been valuable to me that I want to share with you guys. So I think the first question that you perhaps want to ask, or that I at least think we should be asking, is why we should be expanding our reach, particularly within public domains. My argument here is that we need psychology today more than ever. You don't need me to tell you, especially today and here, about, it's easy when we're up in Glasgow, I don't have to deal with any of this. You don't need me to tell you about the economic, political, global climate right now, instability and uncertainty, panic, all these kind of things. And all of these domains require multidisciplinary approaches. One of those disciplines is psychology, in my opinion, but it's one of the most overlooked, I feel, about psychological principles, psychological understanding of what actually is going on in our world today. We need people like you more than we've ever needed them. Yet I still don't think that's fully appreciated in the kind of public sector, in the public domain. I really want to change that as much as I can, as much as you can. I also think it's all very well and good having that belief that it's important that we engage more, but I also think we need to change how we actually engage with the public. And this is going to go on to a little bit about Get Psyched in a minute, but in psychology, there's a focus on empirical research, obviously, and that's absolutely vital. And many of you, of course, have published empirical research, as have I. I'm an advocate, obviously, for continually publishing empirical research. But I also know that empirical research is there in part, at least as a counselling psychologist, to inform practice to then go out into the world and work with people. However, there is also something to be said about the fact that people don't necessarily directly absorb psychological content or research. They don't access journal articles, they don't access databases to read the latest articles. The public don't necessarily do that. So how do we engage with the public? I think psychology has been very good at taking a bit of a back seat in the sense of engaging with the public. I think we've been very good at saying, come to us and we'll teach you, come to us and we'll help, come to us and we'll educate. I really want to change that and say that we will go to the public where they reside. When you think about the platforms where they are, things like social media, things like online content, whether that is blog work, YouTube work, these kind of things. I think it's really important that psychologists are on those platforms more to help us engage with the public as much as we can. This is very counselling psychology focused, but often I think the public just view us as doing this kind of one-to-one therapeutic work, and that's the limitations of what we do. There's so much more to psychology, and I think, at least in the public anyway, and I'm being quite general when I say this, I think there's still a misunderstanding of what psychology is actually all about. A couple of months ago, I had a client that came to my work and went through the normal assessment process, introduction, consent. Client was very quiet, and asked what it was that brought them to therapy. And by no means am I blaming the client in any way here, and there was therapeutic work to be done, but the client just kind of shrugged their shoulders. And it transpired that their expectation was that I would be able to figure out their issue right there and then without them saying anything and be able to give some kind of advice that would be helpful. There's this kind of mystical, magical aura sometimes I think that the public have towards psychology, that we're not really sure what psychology is or what it does. That's of course not the client's fault, and we managed to get some proper work done as we progressed. But I think it spoke a little bit to how the public see psychology or what they think it is. We need to change that as much as we can. Again, I'm being very general. You might disagree, you might not. But I think we have an obligation to communicate and reach out to the public where they are and inform them all about psychology and what it is. I'm always one for plugging my content at conferences like this, so you'll forgive me. But Get Psych, the stuff that I do online, we have lots of different social media platforms where we try and practice, or at least I try and practice what I preach by utilizing empirical understanding or empirical evidence or research and putting it into public digestible content on social media, YouTube, our website, that kind of thing. So you can follow us if you like. I think there's also something to be said about what this can do for you as an early career psychologist or somebody going into a career in psychology. There is something that is important about engaging with the public that is progressive for your own career and professional development. When I was a psychology undergraduate student a while back, I was one for kind of sending out bulk emails. I used to email as many psychologists and therapists and psychology organizations as I could, trying to gain a little bit of understanding about, trying to get some experience, some volunteer work, learn as much information as I could. 97% of them didn't really get back to me. Of the 3% that remained, probably 0.5% were positive, and it often led to some real opportunities for me. As I tried to increase my engagement and expand my reach, I was noticing that I was getting new opportunities. The job I actually have right now came as a result of me reaching out, of me increasing my engagement to that organization, First Psychology. They didn't have a position that was available for a trainee like me, where it was a paid placement. And now that program where trainees are coming on board into First Psychology and getting paid for their placement is nationwide across Scotland. That was as a result of me reaching out, developing my engagement, increasing my reach as much as I could. So networking, in a kind of selfish way, I suppose, when we're thinking about engaging with the public and engaging with others, networking is one of those real benefits that I've experienced. I also think there's something to be said about coming out of psychology as an undergrad or a postgrad or a doctorate. You're not one of one. There are going to be so many others that are in a position very similar to you, that have the same degree, that have the same experience. And my question is, what is it that's going to differentiate you if you're thinking progressively about your career development? It's not all necessarily to do with networking or reaching out, but I think there is something in this about helping career progression. There has to be things that differentiate you from the others that are graduating along with you. All of this kind of led me to understanding a little bit more about the importance of engagement, and it led me to thinking about developing a platform for myself. Like I said earlier, I was one for kind of sending out bulk emails, and it was a kind of not a waste of time, but it wasn't very productive at times. It took up a lot of time, and I didn't get as much feedback as I hoped. I realized that I had to kind of create a platform, or at least that's how I saw it. So 2 years ago, I kind of thought it would be important to actually, like I said, practice what I preach and develop my engagement with the public as much as I could and reach out as much as I could. I had to have a reference point where people could be pointed to. I had to have resources that people could absorb. Rather, what was happening with the emails that I was sending out anyway, was that I was just a random message from somebody that would end up on their kind of spam account and they wouldn't really message me back. When I had a voice, when I had content to actually produce, when people were absorbing that content, things became much easier. I was engaging and reaching out in ways that I'd never before. Get Psyched itself started as a YouTube channel in 2017. And it covers all kinds of different topics within psychology. That's what I focus on. So content for the public in general, maybe some kind of hot topics in psychology, things that are applicable to current climates, things that the public are wanting to know more about, maybe things like developing self-esteem, the psychology of certain topics. But I also look at things for psychology students and graduates as well. So like publishing your research, or my advice anyway on publishing research, writing up your psychological dissertation, developing a psychological CV, these kind of things. So Get Psyched really has kind of started to evolve as it's grown, and my engagement with the public has increased, and that's led to the website development, getpsyched.org.uk, where we publish all of our YouTube videos and things like that, and we also do blog content. And I found that as I've utilized empirical understanding, empirical knowledge, and my own expertise, my own knowledge, into platforms that the public absorb, I've had so much engagement. I often thought, initially when I started Get Psyched, that it would be for psychology students or psychology graduates. That's actually quite a small percentage of the audience. The majority of the audience is the public. It's a resource now, it's an opportunity for the public to come and learn more about psychology. I've been amazed actually with how much the public are interested in psychology. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but as soon as you tell somebody that you're studying psychology or that you're a psychologist, well, first of all, they think that you're going to read their mind or something like that, but as you've probably experienced. But there's also a real excitement about that. There's something really interesting. The public really want to know what psychology is, and that's fantastic. I love that because I can pretend like I'm really smart and I can tell them all this. But it also speaks to the fact that they don't really know. They want to know what this is all about. Some of them do actually think I'm reading their minds. So, this speaks to the level of engagement that we need to express within public. And that's been a real realization for what I've been doing with Get Psyched, is that I first thought it would be for psychologists and psychology graduates and students. It's the public that want to absorb this information more than anybody. That shouldn't stop you from going and checking it out though. Yeah, so we do a lot of blog posts and things like that. And the blog content, at least the written blog content, is very pushed towards the public domain. Thinking about self-esteem development, other kind of topics that we try and do weekly about certain kind of psychological disorders or mental health or kind of recent policies or developments in mental health. We look at things like that in the blog as well. There's been a number of opportunities that have come, there's been a number of lessons learned as well as opportunities come from the fact of just developing Get Psyched in the first place. There's something about improvisation. You need to improvise if you're going to engage with the public, if you're going to reach out to them. You need to think in ways that are different to your academic experience only. There needs to be new ways in which you reach out to that audience. You have to be resourceful. What you have at your disposal. With Get Psyched, I've never really invested a huge amount of money. Invested a little bit into a new website that we had a couple of months ago, but that's really as far as it's gone. You have to be resourceful with what you have available in order to make the most of it. There's also something about being creative. How can you utilize new platforms or existing platforms that you've not used before to actually engage with the public as much as you can with your psychological expertise? There has to be something about confidence too, a belief that this is an option for you, that you are able to undertake these kind of things, and that you have the ability and the power to reach out to the public, and the public really want to hear what you have to say. There's a thing about determination as well, that one of the key things that I've learned off of Get Psyched, when I first started, I made a commitment that I would do this for a full year, regardless of the number of subscribers or views or anything that I got. And on the 51st week, I would be making weekly videos and weekly blog content regardless. There has to be a determination with this. Things aren't going to just appear overnight. The public aren't going to engage with what you have to say overnight. You have to be consistent and determined with that. I wanted to be, one of the things I wanted to do today was to try and inspire as much as I could. I I don't want to be that kind of speaker that comes up and just plugs all their own stuff and says how great they are. But there have been some really amazing opportunities that have come from me off the back of GetCite, and it's come as a result of engaging with public domains. There's an organisation based down in here in London called PsychReg that, when I first started, asked me to write a blog post. They then asked for me to write a couple others. They have a fantastic website, by the way, of psychology blog content. You should go and check them out. And then they asked me to feature on their YouTube channel, and I did a couple of interviews there. And then they were having an international conference out in the Philippines last August and asked me to come out and speak. And it was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. I had started GetCite a year prior, and all of a sudden I was in East Asia speaking at an international conference. There's so many opportunities for you if you're willing and open to engaging with the public, both nationally and internationally. That's at least what I've experienced. You yourself might be thinking, well, you might be thinking a number of things. Sometimes this is something that people are like, yeah, I really like this idea. Others just wish I would, move on to the next speaker. Sometimes that happens as well. That's okay. But you might be thinking a little bit about, is this worth doing? Is it worth actually developing a platform? Is it worth trying to engage with the public? I'm quite happy with my job right now. I'm quite, I like the empirical research side of things, and that's great. Of course you should, as do I. But I really believe that it's a balancing act. And I also believe, and I go out on a bit of a limb here, I don't believe that this is just an option for psychologists now. I think we're obligated to do this. Psychology, for me, the passion I have for psychology is in the potential of people. All people, regardless of some of the most awful life circumstances that I hear in therapy, people can create some incredible lives for themselves from the most depraved of circumstances. But we as psychologists need to communicate that to them. We need to inspire, we need to educate them about psychology. This is an obligation for psychologists, I believe now, to engage with the public. It's not just a thing where we can sit in our research rooms in universities and just write papers all day. We need to do that, we need to have that, but we need to be engaging with the public as well. My second shameless plug of the day is that another opportunity that actually rose up from engaging and increasing my reach was after the Philippines last year in August. This year, the same conference is going to be held in Malaysia in November. And GetCite has actually been asked to co-host that conference. If you're thinking, it was great to hear about the bursaries on international conferences. If you're thinking of maybe applying to an international conference in Malaysia, applications are open. There's awesome bursaries that you guys can access as well like that. It's okay. That kind of ties in nice. So yeah, okay, I'm aware of my time. Why is this all important? Well, we need visionary and progressive psychologists. We need psychologists that meet the world where it is. We need psychologists to be front-facing. I had such an honor to be asked to speak at these events. I love speaking with the BPS, and it was a great privilege last year as well to speak in Newcastle at the Inspiring Careers event. And the analogy that I use is that people can name every Kardashian pretty easily. Not me, of course. They can name every Kardashian, but can they name psychologists that are recognizable? And this isn't about fame. This isn't about any of that. This is about psychologists in the public domain and the public awareness. We need psychologists to be in that public awareness. And we need psychologists to play an active role in society. So what can you do? Well, you can think of new ways to engage. You can be innovative and creative, and don't be afraid of utilizing those new opportunities and ways of engaging. Sometimes what happens when I speak about GetCite or I speak at conferences like this is that people come up to me and give me ideas. Don't do that. Don't come and tell me what you think would be better done with GetCite. Take that on yourself. That's how I want to inspire people when we're engaging with the public, is to actually take on these opportunities for yourself and utilize them. One of the great ways that I got started in this kind of field and increasing my reach and my engagement was that I guest blog posts for a number of different organizations, and I want to open that up to you guys today as well. We have a lot of guest blog posters post for GetCite, and I want to ask you guys, if you're interested, if you think this is something that you would be interested in doing, then you're more than welcome to write for GetCite. One of the ways that we do this sometimes is that people write suggestions on Instagram stories and they tag us, and then I get back to you and we can discuss some potential topics. So that's an option if people are up for writing a guest blog post, then that would be awesome. Key points to consider as I finish. There needs to be a change in how we engage with audiences, particularly the public. And there are huge opportunities to expand that reach, both for you and for developing public awareness of what psychology is all about. And you absolutely have the ability and the power to undertake this and make this something for yourself, make this a positive experience. Thank you for your time. You can get in touch with me on social media, email, websites, all those things. Thank you very much.